I asked you a question. And again, you guys are delivering on the truckwreck.com text line, 877-881-1053. Where are you leaning towards the Cowboys utilizing their first round pick in the upcoming 2024 NFL draft? That'll be in late April. We've still got time, but early on, like, what's your gut feeling? Because I do know there's some positions that you need. I know some people like lean entirely on the idea of like best player available no matter what. And you honestly, you can lean and look at the ways in which some of your best players on this team were simply best player available picks. Hello, CeeDee Lamb, who was just a he's there, let's get him. Hello, Micah Parsons.
Yeah, CeeDee fell on their laps.
Right, and
they'd
so
have been crazy. They didn't. Well, so what about the CeeDee Lamb thing? People forget they didn't even interview him because they thought they had no chance. And all of a sudden, he kept dropping and dropping and dropping, and bam, guess what you got?
A fantastic, incredible player. And so with that being the case, sure, best player available, always understood to be one place that I think a lot of people want to go. But on the truckwreck.com text line, inside linebacker jumps out a lot. I mean, that's clearly a position of need, especially because I don't know that you have any level of certainty around Leighton Vander Esch. If you were just like, all right, he's going to come back, Overshown comes back healthy, and then maybe you still, maybe make an addition when it comes to free agency, or maybe, that's a place that you want to solidify with some questions around it. Maybe utilizing more draft assets to solidify it, and maybe getting an asset, a player that you know will be great. The tough part about it, it's inside linebacker in the first round, although you will be drafting in like the latter parts of the first round. That always is one of those positions that like real football nerds will look up and go, the value of that particular pick, you might be able to get a player of similar caliber a little bit later as opposed to using your first round pick. But it's clearly a need.
It's clearly a need. In fact, up until yesterday afternoon, when G-Bag had the great John Owning, you speaking about football nerds, John Owning is the best of the best. He knows how to crunch those numbers. Pro Football Focus, he was on, and I'm thinking, we got to get some linebacker, middle linebacker. And they posed the question to him, and he said, you know what? If you were smart, you would get that linebacker as a free agent.
Yes.
And then you might sneak and steal a linebacker in the third round. Because he said, just basically what you said, Reggie said, linebacker in the first round, this year might not be that year.
Yeah.
He said, but if you want to make that impact, you find you one in free agency, and then you shore it up in the third round. So I'm liking that logic, because in all seriousness, here's Zimmer and here's McCarthy. McCarthy's probably a one and done if they don't do something, right? And Zimmer could be gone with him. At the same time, Dan Quinn's flaw was his hybrid, his wanting to make these safeties linebackers. And so not having to worry about a safety being a linebacker, I'm with Oni. Get you a free agent linebacker. I would use my first round pick. The first player I would get.
Yes, sir.
I get a defensive tackle. Another one. Don't get me wrong. Nothing against Mozzie. Mozzie's not there yet.
I mean, a little something against Mozzie.
Okay, a little bit something.
Okay.
Mozzie's been losing weight too. I don't know what the deal is.
That's just a weird phenomenon that I still have not been able to wrap my head around.
And don't get me wrong, I like Mozzie, but I'm not sure if Mozzie is the answer. And because of that, you got to get more. To me, you got to load up that defensive line, especially in the middle, especially if you're going to have Micah on the edge more. I don't know if you're going to put him in middle linebacker. Because one thing Zimmer was smart about, he said, I'm not going to say at this press conference what I'm going to do with Micah when I haven't talked to him yet.
Yes.
I'm like, Zim's just preaching the truth.
For sure. As we continue talking about where we're leaning really early on in the process with the Cowboys' first round pick from the 903, from the 214, and ultimately asked a question here in the 972, isn't this draft full of good linemen? And yes, it really is.
You need him too.
Brian Broaddus, obviously, Super Bowl winning scout. You trust his eye when you get out here looking at who is out there. Just before this show, I wanted to verify, where are the positions that are not only good, but deep in this draft class. Offensive tackle is one that comes up. Now, I've seen some people mention center, and that's absolutely position because you have Tyler Biadasz, who will be a free agent. If you're not necessarily sold on bringing him back, he's probably like an average center, right? He's not a bad center, but if you look at the idea of someone like a Creed Humphrey, who came in and was an instant impact and has been a very huge part of Super Bowl winning teams for the Kansas City Chiefs, you look up and you go, man, maybe you can get, Alec Linderbaum in Baltimore. You've seen the ways that he's played well, right? Like the centers can come in and be impactful, especially in a deep.
I'll give you a local one. Travis Frederick came in and did it.
Absolutely. And so maybe, just maybe, you look at bolstering an offensive line that has gotten a little bit older, and as you've tried to inject some youth into it, but an offensive line that's been solid, but maybe not as good as it had been in the past. If you can strengthen that again, maybe you can juice up the run game, especially understanding that they might not be spending, and they probably won't be spending in the running back department. So in order to help enhance your running game, if you get push on the offensive line up the yards before contact, right, then your running game is a lot better just based off of the ability to block it up.
Oh, I hear you. I'm co-signing with you on that. I like that as well. 214 co-signs it with you as well. It says Cowboys' first pick should be a center. The 469, or is that the 499? 469 says guard all day. The 903 says Dallas got hurt more on the edge. And let's see, 940 says JPJ, Oregon center. He is a stud.
Okay, yeah, there's a lot of tackles I know that are available, but I mean, there's a lot of offensive linemen, and one thing about offensive linemen, when they're really good, they do go early, but it is nice that there's some depth there, which means that in the late part of the first round, you still might be getting a really good lineman if that's a place that you go with your first round pick. I know I've seen some people mention running back is a possibility for them, and it just does not feel like the way to go. From the 214, we mentioned Greg Ellis. Somebody said everyone remembers Greg Ellis over Randy Moss, but forgets Taco over TJ. I don't think there's anybody forgets. I don't think anybody forgets Taco over TJ. But
everybody's mad about that.
Yeah, that one comes up time and time again.
I would tell people on the air, I would say, don't ever call him TJ Watt. You call him should have been a Cowboy, TJ Watt.
Yeah, that's on his birth certificate as well.
Exactly.
No, and what's funny is from the 817, boring pick, I know, but it would find some plus value at guard or center. It feels like there's an overwhelming amount of people that are like, actually, I would love to see them invest in the offensive line with this first round pick.
Mm-hmm. I listen, you cannot go wrong. And again, you want that balance with the running and the passing. And that's where you help out both.
There's a few people that I've mentioned, obviously defensive tackle like you did. And I wonder if now you're playing the game again where you're wondering if you're going to get that level of immediate impact from a defensive tackle. We've seen some defensive tackles, young defensive tackles, come in and make impacts early. Like I forget what my guy is in his name in with the Rams. No, with the Rams recently this year. I think it's Turner, if I remember correctly. I'll have to go back and remind. But obviously, Jalen Carter had some good play early on in his career. But historically, defensive tackles and immediate impact doesn't always happen. Right. And I do wonder if they'd be hesitant to go and put another first round pick in that position.
Well, again, mine was the combo package. I'm following up on John Owning. I'm saying get you a free agent linebacker.
Sure.
And then get that defensive tackle in the first round and get another linebacker in the third.
I do think you need to invest in defensive tackle this offseason, though. I think free agency might be one of the places where you do that because making your linebacker play better is making sure that middle of that defensive line is well taken care of. So there you go. That's where we're leaning early on into the process. We got a lot. We got a couple of months of delving through the players and the draft and all the scuttlebutt and the lying season of this all.
This is the way too early.
But it's interesting to see maybe some of the ways in which the people, the Tolos, and ourselves are feeling early on about maybe the way that your Dallas Cowboys utilize their first round pick.
And it's always a good thought just to have these theoreticals early because team building is a sport.
I do think, though, best player available is probably the way that you need to get a good player regardless in the first round here.